Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Danny Phantom. Okay, so this episode double-crossed my heart. Well, essentially Sam falls in love with a guy, and Danny becomes jealous, but also the guys in white show up in this episode. And Danny believes that her new quote-unquote boyfriend has something to do with it. So the episode actually opens up with Skulker hunting a ghost, and he admits it's a small prize, but he points out that it'll be worth the hunt nonetheless. So he proceeds to chase after it, and also scares a guy who comes out to see what's going on, where you're just going boo. But it's eventually at this point where it's revealed that actually the ghost Skulker was hunting was actually a decoy ghost, and was designed specifically to lure him out into the open so that they could capture Skulker. And Skulker quickly discovers what's going on and tries to fight back against the guys in white, but they quickly manage to trap him in a tractor beam. And left with no other choice, he ejects from his suit, which is the first time we've seen him do this since his debut episode. By the way, he has not done this since, which I find interesting. But it's just casually a thing that they remembered he can do, but he hasn't actually done it since his debut episode. Find it funny. But of course, Skulker winds up eluding capture, and the guys in white are visibly annoyed that he's eluded capture. But then point out that it's fine, pointing out that they at the very least have his suit, and points out that while they would have liked to interrogate Skulker on what he knew, they point out that they should be able to hack into a suit to find Danny Phantom and figure out what his deal is. So, and their end goal is to ultimately hunt Danny Phantom. That's essentially what their plan is throughout the episode. But in case the next day we discover that Sam, Tucker, and Danny are hanging out in the Nasty Burger, and what we find out is that it goes up the next day where we discover that Sam, Danny, and Tucker are hanging out in the Nasty Burger, and we discover that Danny still isn't over Valerie, and he openly admits that. We see Valerie leave, and they kind of wave on each other a little bit, but of course Sam points out that Sam and Tucker point out that it's been years and that he needs to let it go, but of course Danny points out that he can't, pointing out that she was kind of his first serious girlfriend. He doesn't really know if he can ever let her go, and admits that he'll probably be in love with her for a while, pointing out that they have no idea what it's like to be in love with somebody that they can't be with, which of course causes Sam to accidentally spit out her soda and do a spit take, because it's very ironic. But in any case, it's at this point where Mr. Lancer shows up with a new exchange student named Gregor. And Gregor, it's kind of a joke that they do. Gregor is from Hungary, so when Tucker, and of course he responds that he is from Hungary, but when Tucker asks him some of his food, he responds that, no thanks, I've already ate. And it's just a funny little joke. But in any case, initially, nobody's entirely sure what to make of Gregor, but Gregor immediately reveals that he's very smitten, quickly becomes very smitten with Sam, and Sam kind of gets smitten with him as well. Sam just immediately falls in love with him and immediately scoots over so that they can sit so that he can sit down, which of course Danny and Tucker kind of object to, since they don't know Gregor all that well yet. He's a new exchange student, of course, but and of course, it's this point where she remarks that her name is that she just proceeds to, like a spaz, just kind of ramble on about all of her interests and other things, which Gregor proceeds to point out that he doesn't really mind, pointing out that it makes her endearing, which she kind of blushes about, which of course causes Danny to become upset because obviously they're flirting, and he doesn't really like the idea of Sam flirting with another guy, because they're implied to have a crush on each other. That's a recurring thing. But in case it is at this point where as Gregor and Sam are kind of hitting it off, Danny's ghost sense immediately goes off, and he sees the same decoy ghost that the guys in white have been using, and realizing he needs to go ghost and go fight it, he immediately runs to the bathroom, but discovers that the bathroom requires you to pay, like some sort of dystopian future thing. So he asks Tucker for a dime, and Tucker lends him a dime, so that Danny can go ghost in the bathroom, which of course, and Danny immediately leaves to go fight the ghost, but instead discovers a guy in white who have gotten a lot better at fighting ghosts since they've last met. And he openly establishes that, but he admits that he's gotten better as well, and has since has developed more powerful ghost rays. And eventually, he is able to chase the guys in white off, which of course winds up becoming, which of course, but of course then proceeds to wonder why exactly it is that the guys in white are there. But AKC then proceeds to return to his table, where he discovers that now Tucker has since developed a budding bromance with Gregor as well, and Gregor has since tried to inform him to wear his beret backwards because it looks cool. And of course, Danny is obviously very visibly frustrated, and he is a little confused as to what Gregor's true motive is, because he starts to suspect that something isn't right about Gregor. Something doesn't sit right with him, and But in any case, meanwhile, the guys in white are also waiting in a hotel room, and are also going to retreat to their motel room, where they continue to study Skulker's suit and its schematics, and try to figure out what's going on with it. And they do point out that because of that, they're able to figure out all the primary locations of where Danny Phantom usually hangs out, and points out that they can easily figure some stuff out and trace Danny back to his house. Meanwhile, Danny is very much insistent that something is not right with Gregor. He comes to Tucker, who is still wearing his beret backwards like an idiot. But and we also find out that Gregor claims to be goth. He claims that he wears white, but white is the new black in Hungary, which of course he claims. But of course Tucker tells Danny to give him a chance, pointing out that he may have maybe he'll be surprised by Gregor. But of course, Danny is insistent that Gregor isn't what he seems, and also knowing the similarities, he does claim that maybe Gregor is a spy working for the guys in white. So that of course Tucker of course is a little bit confused, but points out that if Gregor is indeed a spy, he's a very good one, because he didn't even pick up on that if Danny is in fact right. So of course Danny reveals that in order to prove it, he'll have to keep an eye on Gregor, which of course Tucker points out is most likely a bad idea, pointing out that obviously Sam and Sam is not going to be particularly happy about the fact that Danny is spying on her with his ghost powers, but Danny again just remarks that he doesn't care, pointing out that he's sure Gregor's up to something. At which point he shifts into his ghost mode, turns invisible with and this is a recurring joke throughout the episode, but Tucker proceeds to holler after Danny that he thinks it's a bad idea, but because Danny's currently invisible, Gregor and Sam walk past him and believe he's talking to invisible air, which Gregor notes is pretty cool. But in case it is at this point where Danny proceeds to go on a spying montage to try and figure out what's going on with Gregor, obviously what's going on with Gregor, and he spies on Danny he spies on Sam and Gregor throughout their dates. He's trying to figure out what's going on, but at each of the locations where he encounters Gregor, he also, adding to kind of Danny's suspicions, also encounters the guys in white at the multiple locations where he fights them. And this, of course, causes Danny to start suspecting that Gregor might, in fact, be one of them, because if it's not happening intentionally, it's definitely a coincidence, and a very weird one at that. But of course, does note that it doesn't seem like. But of course, he's also very, very visibly confused. But that's why. But ultimately, the final confrontation he has with the guys in white is in the mall. But he eventually does come back to Tucker, pointing out that he does believe Gregor's playing something, and also, in the process, also discovers that Sam and Gregor have kissed. They took their first kiss, which of course, Danny having hidden the parking lot to get away from the guys in white is very visibly upset about the fact that they've officially kissed, which of course with Gregor of course claiming that Sam had quote unquote spaghetti sauce on her lip to kind of pull her into a kiss. But and of course, this is this point where he comes back and does confront Sam about this when they're at school the next day. He sits down and asks Sam if they had a good night, and also he casually brings up spaghetti sauce, which of course causes Sam to become extremely angry with him, pointing out that obviously she was spying on obviously he knows now that Danny was spying on her with Tucker again pointing out that it was a really bad idea for Danny to do that, as he warned him about, which and of course Danny then proceeds to insist that Gregor isn't what he seems. He proceeds to insist that Gregor must be working with the guys in white because he does a bunch of things. He wears sunglasses. He dresses in mostly white. He points out that it's a pretty weird set of coincidences that he's also encountered the guys in white as well while spying on Gregor. So he admits that there's a lot of weird coincidences around Gregor that only makes sense if he's working with the guys in white. But Sam, of course, doesn't want to hear it and insists that Danny leave them alone, telling them that who she dates is none of Danny's business, at which point she proceeds to storm off. And of course, at this point, but Danny isn't deterred by the idea that Gregor is working with the guys in white. So he asks Tucker to be their +1 and follow him around. And and also while Danny is kind of leaving the school, he does note that Mr. Lancer is talking with the guys in white. And what Danny discovers is that the guys in white have since used and this is a thing that has come up multiple times, of course. The guys in white have since used Skoker's suit to determine that there was a report on a purple-back gorilla that was given out to their class to Mr. Lancer's class recently, and decide to start asking him questions. And of course, Lancer has no interest in working with them. He points out that he doesn't want to give them any sort of information because there's a student confidentiality thing that he has to abide by as a teacher. But then they threaten him with, legal action, pointing out that they work with the government and the people and are in charge of his taxes. So they point out they could very well make his life a living hell if he doesn't actually cooperate. So Mr. Lancer is unfortunately forced to tell them everything they want to know. But in any case, sure enough, Tucker does proceed to go along with Sam and Gregor to everything they do together, being like a third wheel that throughout the night slowly seems to drive Sam crazy. Which, of course, because Tucker is supposed to be there as a +1, but does admit that since Tucker insisted to be on being his +1, that he most likely comes with. But of course, Tucker then proceeds to follow Danny around, to follow Sam and Gregor around on their dates, and does admit that he just kind of follows them around and does everything they do. They go to a movie, he's at the movies. They go to a soda place. He's there ordering a soda with them. They go back to Sam's house for movies. He's there sitting on the couch with them, eating their popcorn with them. So more of the personal theater as we established last time they were at Sam's house, but you get the point. But in any case, eventually Danny does call Tucker with a status update, pointing out that he's been fighting the guys in white a lot as well. And of course, Tucker points out that they've had a wonderful night, and for the most part, there hasn't been anything weird with Gregor. They admit that everything's been mostly normal. So he admits that everything's fine. But Danny, of course, isn't fully convinced. And the next day at school, he preps himself in front of his locker, claiming that he's going to confront Gregor, pointing out that he knows Gregor isn't what he seems, and how he wants him to confess about who he is. But of course, Gregor proceeds to overhear him practicing his little confrontation, and it's at this point where Gregor points out that he knows that Danny doesn't like him. He understands that, and of course Danny admits that it's nothing like that. But of course Gregor points out that he does recognize something that Danny isn't willing to admit to himself. Danny likes Sam, and Danny doesn't quite admit it, but he admits that since Gregor also likes Sam, and Gregor's a lot more sure about his feelings for Sam, he admits that he's going to continue seeing Sam, and is glad that Danny and him had that talk, which of course frustrates Danny to no end, pointing out that Gregor was but by that point pointing out that he had a whole conversation planned, but by this point Gregor had already left, and Danny imagines that this entire conversation should have gone a little bit smoother. At which point, he and Tucker walk out of the school, and Danny sees Gregor and Sam holding hands, and is still visibly upset, but does tell Tucker to keep telling them to where their dates are, pointing out that he knows Gregor's saying something. He just wants Tucker to continue keeping an eye on him. So Tucker kind of obliges to that. But in case, Danny proceeds to go home only to discover that his parents are talking with the guys in white, which of course very much concerns him. And and of course what we find out is that they have since traced the guys in white they have since traced the purple-back gorilla thing back to Danny's house, where they point out that Tucker Foley is a known accomplice of Danny Phantom. So they're of course trying to figure out what exactly is going on with Tucker, what the connection with Tucker is. So they're of course trying to figure out what could possibly be going on. And of course Danny denies everything, while his parents point out that they obviously have no idea what they're talking about, pointing out that their son has never displayed any sort of half-ghost tendencies before. So they have no idea. They of course point out it's preposterous that Danny Phantom could be living in their house somehow. But of course, pointing out that doesn't leave them with many other options, and thinking their hunch is wrong, they then deduce that maybe Gregor might secretly be the Danny Phantom, pointing out that he has the white hair and would obviously be around the same age, and concluding that is in fact who they're looking for. They proceed to leave, but thank the Fentons for their time. At which point Danny realizes that he was wrong about Gregor, sort of. We'll get to that, but and now realizing that the guys in white are actually after Gregor, does realize he needs to go and find them and warn Sam and Tucker, who are obviously going to get caught in the crossfire. Meanwhile, Tucker is obviously very visibly has joined them alongside their stargazing trip, where of course Gregor is planning to confess to Sam, but and of course it's at this point where he proceeds to ask Tucker if they can have a moment alone. At which point, Gregor proceeds to pull them aside and of course asks Sam to be his girlfriend, but also admits that he has one caveat, that she doesn't hang out with Tucker anymore. Which of course points out that is a no deal, pointing out that Tucker is one of her best friends and they're kind of a package deal. Either Tucker hangs out with them whenever they need to, or they're not going to date anymore. And of course, it's this point where Tucker proceeds to walk over, pointing out that they're about to miss them. That they just saw a really cool constellation, but then realizes that they clearly interrupted something. At which point, Gregor's facade slips, and we find out that he's not actually. Well, first and foremost, we find out he's not even Hungarian. He immediately snaps at Tucker, and he stops doing his accent. Which of course, which ironically, Danny was right about Gregor being not what he seemed. Turns out his hunch was wrong. Gregor's not working with the guys in white, but he is a sleazeball. He's revealed to not actually be Hungarian, and is mainly pretends to be Hungarian to pick up chicks. Which of course Sam points out that means they're so over, because now she realizes that Gregor is nothing like what she thought he was, and Gregor of course quickly rebounds from this and immediately changes his disguise to go flirt with cheerleaders, which frustrates Sam. And Tucker does console her, pointing out that he's so sorry it didn't work out, and admits that he's sad that Gregor wasn't exactly ultimately what he seemed. But they admit that they don't really have much. They don't have much time to actually, for Tucker to console Sam, because it's at this moment where the guys in white show up at the observatory and start attacking the place, trying to get at Gregor, who they believe is Danny Phantom, which of course is wrong. But of course Sam tells Gregor to run, even though she doesn't have much of a high opinion of him anymore. And of course the guys in white continue to attack Gregor, and Tucker is forced to push him out of the way to save his life, although admits that he still does hate Gregor for very openly breaking Sam's heart. At which point Gregor flees, claiming that he's had enough and that he's going back to Michigan. At which point he reveals that his real name is actually Elliot. And so yeah, he's not Hungarian. His name is not even Gregor. Turns out he was just a sleazeball. So that's phony. But in any case, at this point, Danny proceeds to confront the guys in white and proceeds to fight off their fighter jets that they're attacking Gregor in, and immediately eventually manages to overpower them and rips them out of the cockpits, and then proceeds to tell them to leave him alone, pointing out that he's done dealing with them trying to assassinate him all the time, because he's tired of them treating him as some sort of rogue element that they just need to exterminate. And of course, they're insistent that they won't stop and that there's nothing Danny can do about it. So Danny proceeds to tell them that proceeds to demonstrate what will exactly happen if they don't stop. Turns out he just flings them into some mud because they're wearing all white. But and of course, it is at this point where one of the commanding officers from the guys in white shows up and tells them that they have a cleanliness breach she's noticing. At which point they remark that they claim that they were just dealing with Danny Phantom and that they'll get it cleaned up. But in case that is ultimately where we're not the last we see of the guys in white, but the last we see of them for this episode. And it's at this point where Danny proceeds to apologize to Sam the next day at school, telling her that he's sorry for following her around with his ghost mode, and that he's sorry for stalking her and watching her dates like a hawk, and a whole bunch of other things that he apologizes for. But she ultimately apologizes to him back, pointing out that Danny was, to an extent, right about Gregor, pointing out that he really wasn't what he seems, and that Danny was right to be skeptical of him. So the two of them both apologize, with Sam pointing out that it's unfortunate that Gregor wound up being a faker, and points out that it's clear that the only way a guy could be into Sam is by pretending to be into Sam. Which, of course, Danny proceeds to point out that he doesn't think that is obviously ultimately Gregor's loss, pointing out that he believes that Sam is, smart, capable, funny, beautiful, all these other things. That he starts rambling off all of the things he likes about her, pointing out that any guy would be lucky to have her, but then realizes that he's rambling and wonders why he's such a spaz, which causes the two of them to blush. Well, Tucker then then the episode ends with Tucker proceeding to wonder if he can use some of Gregor's techniques to pick up chicks. And of course, the answer to that winds up being a resounding no, because we hear him getting slapped off screen. So yeah, overall this episode's fun. It does reintroduce the guys in white into the story, because up until this point they were only really in the $1 Million Ghost as one of the quote-unquote world's most known ghost hunters. Obviously they were eventually going to come up at some point. I do like that they do finally come up again. They're fun. But they're a fun parody, and I do like them. So I'm glad they're back. But of course, this is the obvious thing where obviously this is another Danny and Sam flirt episode, because obviously there's a lot of parallels between this episode and Flirting with Disaster. Obviously, the similarities are that, well, in both cases, Sam is skeptical of Valerie and stalks them around trying to figure out what's going on and why she would be into Danny. While Danny does pretty much the exact same thing to Sam in this episode. He follows her around with his ghost mode to try and figure out what's the deal with Gregor and why she would be and why he's dating Sam, and noting that there has to be something more sinister going on. And ironically, neither of them were right, but also both of them were right. But it does imply that they are trying to make sure that they're not stalking. That obviously they're looking out for each other. That's essentially the premise of the episode. But it does kind of bring that previous episode, Flirting with Disaster, full circle by showing that Danny does like Sam back enough to follow her around and make sure that she's dating the right person. Which, of course, neither of them have yet admitted that they like each other yet, but that is a thing in this episode, and it's a thing that comes back from a previous episode, so it is an interesting parallel. And obviously then you got Gregor, who is an absolute scumbag, and Danny was completely right about him. That's the main difference. And also, there are quite a few similarities between those episodes. Like, Danny is constantly getting hunted by a ghost hunter in both episodes. There's a couple of similarities, but I don't know all the similarities off the top of my head, but there are similarities. I do like that. But in any case, that's going to do it for my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Discord. We are going to be watching a horror movie at the end of the week, so please go do that. This is the time for that to be doing a thing. We're going to be doing a thing. Go do that. Go join my Discord. That's what we're going to be doing. I hope you go do that. Just spares repeating multiple times. Go do that. That's important. But in case, yeah, go check that out. And also be sure to go and check out my Twitch. I stream Saturdays and Sundays, except for the day I'm going to be doing the movie, in which case we're going to be streaming that on the Discord. But I stream Saturdays and Sundays, and we've been playing horror games throughout the entire month of October, so I hope you guys will continue to go and support that. Please go check that out. But also be sure to go and check out my Patreon if you want to help support the show. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out. And you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks and a wide way of saying thanks, so be sure to check those out. Links down in the description. And also, finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the playlist, link in the end screen. The top playlist is the most recent playlist of these that I did. I did Megas Month, which was the most previous celebration I did. I did that for my birthday. Please go check that one out. It's Megas XLR themes. Please go do that. Whereas the previous one before that was Courage Month, which was Courage the Cowardly Dog theme and was made to celebrate Halloween the previous year. So if you haven't seen that one yet, either of those yet, please go check those out. I put a lot of work into them, put a lot of work into this one. I think you'll like both. But yeah, in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.